before that, let's have the recitations. Can we have another copy of the text? Yeah. Also this. This maybe later. Turn to page 1, recitations, please. It's not necessary to actually say it out loud. If you don't have the book, you listen. Especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious work. All other sentient beings now possess the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious good. All other sentient beings now possess the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious good. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Dharma and Sangha most excellent. I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all other sentient beings come assess the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all other sentient beings come assess the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all other sentient beings come assess the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Namo Guru Pyo Ju Yingi Nam Kayang Pala Joda Ume Pa Kun Lakyam Joku Doje Changchen Yang Yang Den Semse Jidong Wa So Wa De Lama Gerang Tabu Jin Je Lo Sha Za Ho Yudu Lo Trin Te Jin La Ben Ma Bun Ma Ju Tili Shera Zangpo Yang Yang Den Semse Ji Dongwa So Wade Lama Kirang Tabur Jin Jilo Jang Pushpa Hari Lo Ma Kyu Joji Kawa Ju Neji Kepa Naro Penchen Yang Yang Den Semse Ji Dongwa So Wade Lama Kirang Tabur Jin Jilo Lo Do Long Du Yu Du Du Ning Yu Ki Damba Po La Yu Dagyo Mapa Lotsa Yang Yang Den Semse Ji Dongwa So Wade Lama Kirang Tabur Chen Che Lo Dro La Ji Gang La Chang Chaba Ning Kyu Ki Dam Nga So Dargyo Pe She Pa Do Je Yang Yang Den Semse Ji Dongwa So Wade Lama Kirang Tabur Chen Che Lo Sha Da La Gang Po Dok Sa Len Osa Ki Chab La Kyun Je Me Je Men Pe Kya Po Yang Yang Den Semse Ji Dongwa So Wade Lama Kerang Tabur Chen Ji Lo Pe Pa Mu Duru Nyu Gu Tung Samo Sanga Ki Ter Ka Je Je Rang Jong Sang Je Yang Yang Den Semse Ji Dongwa So Wade Lama Kerang Tabur Chen Ji Lo Jang Zhui Gong Ki Chu Su De Du Min De Du Ki Du Du Yong La Kya Zhen Chen Chu Je Gu On Yang Yan Den Semse Ji Dongwa So Wade Lama Kerang Tabur Chen Ji Lo Ne Ji Su Ni De Den Den Ne Pel Dur Je Chang Dang Ye Re Me Pe Zhen Chen Sa We Lama Yang Yang Den Semse Ji Dongwa So Wade Lama Kerang Tabur Chen Ji Lo Je Jang Chen De Le Na Ro Da Ma Me Da Bo Pa Do Je Den Gu Kadren Sun Den Sa We Lama Shab Sa Ju Lama Yi Dam Chok Yong La So Wa Dep So Da Je Chen Che Lo Kya Ben Ge No Ben Sam Len Ge Ta Pe Dong So Yong La Kyap So Me Kya Wa Do Je Chang Pa Ji Den Gung Pe Shab Lo Do Do Ta Do Sam Ge Kyo Le Ne Jin Je Lo Shi Tu Je Je Ning Ge Mun Pe Se Ne Kyang Sem Do De Do To Bra Je Je Lo Je Yu Je Ne Chang Sam Pe Ma Ge Sa Dong Bo La Ya Sen Jo Ge Nga Dum Ye Pema June She Shuda Kodo Kando Mampu Korke Ki Je Se Da Do Ge Jin Je Lo Je She Su So Guru Bema Se De Ho Min Che Ge Ye Ge Puta Ne Du Sun San Je Kun Je Ngo Bo Ni Tan Sen Che Gong Gong Sun Ton Se Ba Tsa We La Me Shab La So Wa So again, good evening. What you just heard, it's basically invoking the blessings of the lineage. We will hear more about this aspect, the notion of lineage and empowerment, in the second segment of this course. So this course, as you remember, we're dividing it into three segments. So it's Da Gum Chu in Tibetan. Da is Dawa, which means view. Gum is Gompa, meditation. So the view as in the outlook, the basic understanding, the big picture understanding. So then meditation, right, is what do you formally, when you say you practice, what are we doing? What kinds of practices are we talking about when we say practice? Then Chu is Chupa is translated as conduct or activities, meaning then how does your practice, translate into how you conduct yourself when you get up from the seat. In fact, it is said, if you want to know, how well your meditation is, right? Look at how well your post-meditation is.
So even if, like during the formal practice, during the meditation, you have all kinds of fantastic experiences. Yeah, maybe some people will say, "Oh, I felt a lot of heat in the body." Then they think, "Oh, wow, something great is going on." Maybe ate too much salt before meditation. That also can happen. Or like you hear things, you see things. Lights are coming, lights are going. Special smells are coming, special smells are going. Then we think, oh wow, I'm doing really well. Or some might say, even without all those more fantastical things, like my meditation is so well, like I'm single pointed concentration and this and that and all of this special, complete feeling of bliss and this and that. But if when you get up from your cushion, you are no better than before sitting down on the cushion, then we say, oh, that's the quality of your meditation. Not much, not very impressive. So the conduct, the third part, concerns, and of course then there are guidelines that go along with this conduct. So those would range from like moral, ethical ways of conducting yourself in the world. Then more specifically in the Vajrayana context, and especially in the context of this class, we want to talk more about like the different kind of ritual or symbolic things that we use, and how that kind of further supports or reinforces our meditation and our view. So divided into three parts: the view, the meditation, and the conduct. So last week we started the course and we talked about view, meditation, conduct, this overall organizing principle. Right? The other organizing principle that I also discussed is the three vehicles. Remember that? So what's called the Hinayana, what's called the Mahayana, and what's called the Vajrayana. So just to quickly review some of that material, I made this point last week. I said it's really important that when we look at, like say, the practice of Tibetan Buddhism, and we look at the text, and when it says Hinayana, when it says Mahayana, when it says Vajrayana, please don't think of other Buddhists. I said, it's nothing to do with other Buddhists. Buddhists who are in Sri Lanka, or Buddhists who are in Japan, or Buddhists who are in, Thailand, or it has nothing to do with other Buddhists. This category of the three vehicles, the three yana, is talking about three levels of training. And in fact, in a way, the three yanas, tekpasum in Tibetan, three yanas. Yes, you find that term in Tibetan texts, but not as popular or as often as we find it in the West, in fact. And some people have said this is mainly Trungpa Rinpoche, Chogyam Trungpa, popularized these three yanas. More typically in Tibetan texts, when they're talking about these three levels, they call it the three vows, Dompasum. The three sets of vows related to your training. So we have what we now call Hinayana. It's called the individual vows of individual liberation. So that lies at the core of the Hinayana, as I explained last time. It is about the individual. You have to see, is your current situation under the power of confusion and all the afflictive emotions? Yes or no? And if yes, do you like it or not? If you like it, then no problem, like just continue business as usual. No problem, Maybe you are a Buddha, you just, didn't hear the word before, now you can go home, I remember when I was a student at the University of Virginia, being a fairly large university, so there are all these different groups, different things going on. So everyone is putting up flyers, right? Announcing what's happening, what's going on. Like cafes in Nashville, which probably maybe you saw one of the flyers and came here. But at a certain point, right? No. At a certain point, nobody is reading all those flyers anymore. Then one day, all over campus, there was this flyer that says, "Do not open." So someone devised a new flyer. The actual announcement is back there, and then there's a sheet in front that says, "Do not open." Of course, right? Everybody. So, if you look around and you look at your situation, and Buddha says this is samsara, this is this endless cycle of powered by confusion, leading to more confusion, manifesting as dukkha, as suffering. And if you say, I don't agree, then I said, wholeheartedly, congratulations, you are fine. You can go. But if, you look and you say, oh yeah, it's true, this is really a mess, then how do I get out of this mess? Right? So then at the root of that is renunciation. Deciding that this is enough. This is enough. I have had enough, and I want to do something about it. And so then all those trainings is summarized into these training points called the vows of individual liberation, as in it pertains to the individual. Here in the text, there is this line. This is part of a 4-part training in renunciation. It's called to reflect on the precious human life, and then to reflect on impermanence. So first you reflect on how amazing, how special it is that we have what we have right now, and that will really help us to get our priorities straight. Because if you compare your situation to the wrong things, then you will say, my life sucks. Right? If you compare your situation to the wrong things. But if you compare your situation, if you measure your situation to what is important, which in this case is how to be free from confusion, then I can guarantee everyone in this room, if you are in here, you have what the Buddha calls as precious human life. Of course, you can go through the list, of a list of like how in so many ways, the 8 freedoms, the 10 endowments, all of that. But basically, it's saying, if you are here, you have what it takes to be free. You have what it takes to be Buddha. So when we realize that point, right? It's like, yes, maybe you have not been able to pay your bills for 6 months now, but you're like, oh, that's small matter, no problem. Because the most important thing I have. So that's the first contemplation. Second contemplation is before you get too comfortable and think, oh, I have this precious human life. Next one is, this is like a drop of dew on a blade of grass. Anytime, it will go. It will be gone. And so the next is to reflect on impermanence. So then, after you got your priorities right, now you need to kind of encourage yourself. I need to stay focused. This precious thing that I have right now, it will be gone just like that. So don't delay. Second. The third one is to understand cause and effect. What are the causes of happiness and what are the causes of suffering? To know what to give up, or at least avoid, and what to engage in. Whatever you want, you plant the proper seed. Then the fourth one is to see how, even within better states of existence in this life, such as, when I make my first million. These days, you're still pretty poor, apparently. Although I have no way of understanding what a million is. After about 10,000, I don't know. It's just all just zeros, For me, I don't know about you. But you think, oh, when I have my first million, right, then I'll be happy. So it's saying, no. As long as we're still in this cycle of confusion, so traditionally we talk about the 6 realms of existence, from the lowest hell realms to the highest godly realm, this is all still under the power of confusion. So that last line there in this particular text is a very powerful line. It says, after you reflected on how there is no lasting happiness or freedom as long as we are under the power of confusion. Then the last line, it says, I am finished with that and will now practice and will now be on the path to freedom. It's like, I am finished with that. So that is really at the core of renunciation, which is at the heart of the first level, the individual liberation or the Hinayana. Is you really have to decide, I am finished with that. At least for 2 weeks, Then you will forget, for sure, Then you will go and suffer more, right? But now, hopefully, when you suffer, you don't just say, oh, God must hate me. Or, it's my ex-wife's fault, Or it's my boss's fault. Or it's the weather's fault, After this, when you suffer, oh, this is really samsara. This is really what confusion is about, right? So then, again, you say, I am finished with that. Right? Then maybe now 4 weeks, hopefully. Then you forget, right? Again and again and again and again. But at that point, we are on the path. Because now when we suffer, we're not suffering foolishly. Now we know, I know what it is about, but still can't get out of habits. And habits are very powerful. Habits are really strong. It is said that you can purify the confusion, you can purify the delusion with regards to self, meaning like ego grasping, sooner than you can purify habits. Yeah, according to the Buddha. You're like, really? I thought ego grasping is the most difficult. Actually, it says, no, ego grasping can be purified and habits will still be there. So there was a story, one of the Buddha's historical disciples. He has a very bad mouth. Not to everyone, but just in one case. Yeah. So one day, it is said, a river spirit came to the Buddha and said, oh, Buddha, I support all your monks, I protect them. But you have one monk. He is terrible. The Buddha said, why? He said, he is really rude. Every time he comes to the river, he will say to me, hey, little slave, stop the water. I need to cross. So he said, but even that, I stop the water and let him cross, especially when he wants to come to see you. He said, but can you tell him not to be so rude, So Buddha said, oh, okay. Which one? It's told him. So this monk comes, and it said that this monk has already achieved the state of arhat. That means he's no more self-grasping. The Buddha said, this morning this river spirit came and complained to me and said, you are so rude to him. Then the arhat said, oh, okay, I will change. Then after a week, the river spirit comes back and said to Buddha, he stopped for 3 days. Then again he would come and say, hey, little slave, stop the water. So then the disciple, again, Buddha calls him, come, you only stop for 3 days. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm really going to stop. You know how this story goes. So after a few times, finally, then the Buddha turned his omniscient, all-knowing mind to this situation. And then he understood. Then he called both the monk and the river spirit. They said, okay, now both of you come. And he said, okay, here is what is going on. For 20 or 30 past lifetimes, this river spirit was a servant, a slave to this arhat. So even after this arhat has purified ego grasping, his habit is still there. So even though he doesn't mean it in a harsh way, obviously he's still causing some pain to this little spirit. And why this river spirit is so sensitive is also because of 20 lifetimes of habit of hating to be called that name. So we say, habits are really strong. But once we have the Dharma, in a way, there's some, you can relax a little bit now, Once you have Dharma, and even if you cannot do exactly what the Dharma says, just for most of us, you don't need to hate yourself. You can say, you can see, okay, these are very strong habits, even though I want to change, and I will work on it, because you also need to know, until and unless you can change, you can purify, the language is purified, this habits, then it will continue to bring suffering. So anyway, so the first is the renunciation. Then the second, what we call Mahayana. So here in the case of vows, we call them the Bodhisattva vows. So these are the altruistic vows. To say that whatever we do, especially our spiritual lives, it is to be done with an understanding that only when we think for the benefit of all can we really be free. As long as we still have the concept of me, and me more important than infinite minus one. Right now, right? We like to think we are very reasonable, but actually we are very unreasonable. One, all sentient beings out here, minus one. But one is more important. For sure, I can guarantee you, I think like this. One is more important than infinity minus one. Infinity minus one can just go away, as long as one is happy. So we, as long as we have this view, we will never be free. So on the great vehicle, the Mahayana level, we really need to go beyond this one and all. Self and other has to be purified. So then all the Bodhisattva trainings to train, to gain that freedom. Then the third one is the vows of the called the Vidyadhara, the Rigzin Vajrayana commitments, samaya, holding those vows. And that pertains to the understanding of the pristine nature. And we talked about this a little bit last week. The Vajrayana view that all phenomena is pure or all phenomena is pristine, and what that purity means, right? So last week, if you were here, I gave one example of how these three levels is understood without contradiction, but on the surface, it looks like contradiction. But actually, we say no contradiction at all. Sometimes you need to focus on this level. Sometimes you need to focus on this level. Sometimes you need to focus on this level. Even if you're moving from the basic to higher and higher level. But realistically, I think in terms of our daily training, you will find yourself going, sometimes taking this approach, sometimes this approach, sometimes this approach. Which is, I gave the example. Who can remember? What example did I use last week? Not the monkey, but on the three levels, the same object is understood in three ways. What, sorry?
The body.
The body, yes. So on the Hinayana level, what is the body? A skin bag with 9 holes. Things are always coming out of these holes. So it says, you give up obsession on this body. Essentially, that's all that it is. Skin bag with 9 holes. And in fact, out of these 9 holes, all kinds of things are coming out. And when it comes out, nobody wants to touch it. Even yourself don't want to touch it, That's what this is. Now, we're not saying, so hate this. If you get stuck there, then of course, even that is negative. If you get stuck there, and this is terrible, So we say there are some spiritual traditions which the Buddha said this is wrong view. Right? They torture this because they said this is so impure, So they beat, they cut, Said no, you're not going to be free from confusion by doing these sorts of things. But Buddha does say, you need to see. On the Hinayana level, this is a skin bag with 9 holes. On the Mahayana level, not vehicle. Sorry, temple. It becomes a temple once you have what? Once you have generated bodhicitta, which is the altruistic mind. So in Shantideva, the Busuku, in his famous text, Bodhicayavatara, it says, once this bodhicitta is born in your own mind, then this body becomes like a temple, like a golden Buddha. Then on the Vajrayana level, this is what? This body. Deity. This body is the deity. In fact, this body is not just even one deity. Every aspect of your body, down to your hair, down to your skin, down to your pores, is many, many different deities all inhabiting all of it. Every single part that builds up this body is a complete mandala with all the deities. So this is like, blown everything, all your common reference points, it's gone beyond. This is deity. So on 3 levels, you have 3, rather different view, but we say they do not contradict. And they're all necessary. You have all 3. So we practice all 3 without contradiction. So you have the 3 of the view meditation and conduct, then you have the 3 yanas. Those are the 2 sets that we talked about. So last week, with regards to this handout, we looked at the one on page 2 at the bottom. And that one is a modern, a contemporary teacher, Khenpo Sudrin Gyamso, who was born in 1934. He lives in Nepal now, yeah? Khenpo Sudrin Gyamso, yeah. He's in Nepal, he's very old now. So he composed this, right? A concise explanation of the key points of the 3 yanas. Then we also looked at the next one by Buddha on page 2 at the top, right? We looked at this a little bit, did we? No, we didn't go over this yet? Okay. So this one by Buddha, basically, essentially, is the same as the first one that we looked at. But Buddha, being a historical master, when he composed this, it's more precise. He used a lot of technical terms. So here in Buddha's explanation, it's 3 in 3. So for each of the level, he makes 3 points. So we can quickly look at that. Namo Buddhaya means, homage to the Buddha, or homage to all the awakened ones. So it says, to guard against even the slightest misdeed, as if it were poison. So that's the first point. He says, if you want to, he says, summarize all of individual liberation vows, all of Hinayana training, first point, guard against even the slightest misdeed. So to do that, you have to understand, what is a misdeed. Elsewhere is translated as unskillful actions. What is unskillful actions? Actions that produces suffering. Actions that causes dukkha. Even the slightest, we avoid, we guard against. Then the next, to strive to practice virtue, though it may be difficult. To always engage in skillful activities. And the third, to destroy the source, which is the thoughts of self-clinging. When you adopt these 3, then you are truly wise. You're truly wise. So that means now you have the Hinayana training. Right? You know how to get yourself out of this mess. These 3 lines, I think it's another way of putting a very famous 4 lines. To avoid all evil, to engage in all virtues, to purify your mind. This is the teaching of all Buddhists. This is a very famous verse. And sometimes this verse has been used to explain the 3 levels. They say, to avoid all negativity is the heart of Hinayana. To practice all virtues is the heart of Mahayana. To completely purify, subjugate the mind, that is what Vajrayana is for. Sometimes it's explained this way. But in this case, Buddha rephrased this, and he says, all this pertains to the first vehicle. Again, no contradiction, it's just how they emphasize, right? So on the first level, it says, really, all the negative karma, don't go accumulating that. And anything that is positive that you can do, you should do. And the third, to destroy self-clinging. To destroy self-clinging. That means fixating on self. It's because we fixate on self that we have a lot of suffering. Then when we fixate on self, then all the things that are the building blocks of self. You see, when we think I, right? It's not truly I that we are thinking of. Our sense of I, right? Our feeling of I, when I say I, right? It's based on many factors. Can you agree on that? Do you see what I'm saying? So if I was a Tibetan nomad, my sense of I is related to, the example they give is, maybe I have 100 yaks. So part of that I is that I am the owner of 100 yaks. So then they say, when you have 100 yaks, you have the suffering of 100 yaks. Yeah, sure, you can say, I also, have, the benefits of 100 yaks, but the benefits of 100 yaks also come with the suffering of 100 yaks. There's one story, maybe Kimber Rinpoche can correct me if I'm mistaken. I think it was about Pedro Rinpoche, one great master of like the early 20th century, said that, I don't know if it's him, it's basically, they were in like inside the room or above, and then there was some noise down there, like people were fighting. And so then this great Lama kind of looked out the window and looking what was going on, very noisy, Then his friend in the room said, like, what's going on, And then the Lama said, samsara is going on, Then they said, well, what do you mean? He said, no. Then this student or friend said, how do you define samsara? Kind of wanting to like get into like philosophy with him, And he said that it's fighting over a pile of shit. And really, what is they're fighting is this guy's yak did his business on the other guy's land. But yak is fuel. You dry the yak patties for fuel. So the guy who owned the yak say, that's mine. But then the guy said, but it's on my land, that's mine. So these two were fighting over a pile of shit, So this Lama said, this is samsara. Basically, everybody's just fighting over a pile of shit, So we really need to see, basically at the end of the day, we're just fighting over a pile of shit, You say, oh, but I need this for cooking, I need this for... Yeah, but basically, it's fighting over a pile of shit. So last time I said, in the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, those who know, those people who fight, they forget that we will all die. When you know that we will all die, then no point to quarrel. There are much better things to do, than to go fight. So anyway, so the first Hinayana is expressed by Buddha in this way. Then next, for the Mahayana, for the Bodhisattva training, he says, to take others' misdeeds and suffering upon oneself, and to give away one's own virtue and happiness to others. I know we did talk a little bit about this one actually. So this is, I said, Tonglen. So I said, Pema Chodron has really made Tonglen so famous in the West. Just like Thich Nhat Hanh has made mindfulness so famous in the West. Pema Chodron, I think, is the main person that made Tonglen. Even non-Buddhists, they know Tonglen. So this is this. Of course, Tonglen is a meditation technique. There is actual Tonglen and there is Tonglen as meditation technique. The meditation technique is you breathe in, you see someone that you are fond of in front of you who has been very kind to you, at least at the beginning. They say you start like that. They say your mother has been so kind to you. And then you breathe in all her suffering and pain. out of not wanting to see her suffer, not out of like, oh, I'm going to practice Donglen, yeah? But really feeling, like you don't want this person to suffer. So you breathe in all their suffering. And then as their suffering comes in, then you breathe out all your happiness to them. You wish them well. And I said, before you start Donglen, especially if some of you don't know what happiness is yet, then don't do straight Donglen, because you have no happiness to give. You have no loving kindness to give. And so first you have to recognize loving kindness. And recognize that you are the object of so many people's love and kindness. I think we often forget, we can only see why people have done this thing wrong to me, done that thing wrong to me. Just the other day, like some guy, kind of some mindless thing, that he did, and I think, this person, then immediately, we dwell on how someone has done something wrong to you, big or small. Sometimes it's very small, pointless, but we pick on that. But Buddha says, actually look around, how many people, how you have served as the object of love and kindness of so many people. And when you recognize that, you feel good. Like, oh, I'm loved, I think for some of you, maybe you have a hard time understanding maybe some of your relatives who are like born-again Christians, you have a hard time understanding because like some aspects of born-again, like evangelical Christianity, can sound kind of bigoted to us, right? Their positions about, this and that. But I can probably tell you that, if they converted to evangelical Christianity, it's not necessarily because, oh, good, now I get to hate this group and this group, and, it's not because of that, really. But it's because, I think, this powerful message, that they are loved, that God loves them no matter what. That is such a powerful, that they're willing to even like, okay, I'm not supposed to condone, this lifestyle or that life, whatever, that's all secondary. It's really like being gripped by the sense of like unconditionally forgiven, unconditionally loved, So in Buddhism, we say, you have to see how you have been the object of so many people's kindness. So many people loving you, and that you are loved, Then once you recognize that you are loved, then you know what love is. Then you can give. Then you can really practice Donglen. Then there's no fear taking on someone's suffering. Because you have this fount of love and compassion that just pours out to this other person. So then to meditate continually on emptiness and compassion. Yeah, we talked a little bit about this last time. So emptiness and compassion here, we said they are two sides of the same coin. They say if you don't have understanding of emptiness and you just love, or compassion, that's what we call idiot compassion. Then you will suffer a lot. Because what you have done is just, you take on everyone's problems. Yeah, become a doormat, And then you think, I will go take on everyone's suffering. But the point here is you don't just take everyone's suffering. You take everyone's suffering because they become like the wood that will burn. That will burn your confusion. That will open up love. So to do that, you have to have some understanding of emptiness. Then, if you meditate too much or wrongly on emptiness, you might think, oh, nothing matters. Nothing matters. Oh, everything is empty. Because we have not gone into yet the very detailed teachings on emptiness. And in fact, in this course, we don't really have time to go into details. But basically, the meditation on emptiness is I would characterize it as a way of deconstructing identity. The way we latch onto an identity, I, me, mine, right? So this meditation on emptiness is to deconstruct that. And we say that we deconstruct that not because that it is actually there and we are trying to tear it apart. In fact, we say, in the first place, it was never really there. But we imagine it to be there. And so what we're deconstructing is our projection onto reality. Reality, the way things are, they are naturally empty, we say, of essence. They're actually naturally empty, free from essence, free from fixed nature. But we project an entity there. Then we get stuck. Then it doesn't matter, Even if you get stuck with love, it's going to cause pain. Right? Then worse if you get stuck with hate. Even more pain. So how to love and how to have compassion without getting stuck? Here it says, you have to practice emptiness and love and compassion on one side, emptiness on the other side, and you have to practice these two together without separating them. In one important Indian Buddhist text called Madhyamaka Avatara by Chandakirti, he says there are three types of compassion. He says the type of compassion that we share or show towards a being that is illusory, transitory. That's one kind of compassion to a being. Then you even need to have compassion for like the parts that constitute this person. Then the third, the highest, the most profound kind of compassion is called a referenceless compassion. Compassion without subject and object. Without me, you. Of course, for most of us, it's inconceivable. What do you mean? To love is always to love someone else. But it says the most subtle compassion is the one that is without reference point. The second one is like the moon, right? Reflection of moon in the water. First one is like the wheel, right? Water wheel. Three examples are given. So basically what that is pointing to is that we need to have a more and more kind of accurate understanding of when you say you have compassion for someone, love for someone, in this pure way, you need to see that actually that object is not there the way you think that they are there. That's really important because otherwise your love or your compassion becomes a way to control. To control the object of your love and compassion. So sometimes, kids will say to their parents, no thank you. Yeah? Your love and compassion come with too many requirements. So they run away from home, Yeah, I mean, joking aside, it's quite serious, right? That kind of love and compassion. It's not that parents are evil, but parents are suffering. They don't know, that you cannot. It's not going to work this way. Whether it's parents, whether it's partners, spouse, whatever. So this second point, it says when you do these three, like train in this willingness to take on other people's suffering, to give other people your happiness, and then to meditate and to practice continuously compassion and emptiness. Then when you do these three, that is when you're practicing Mahayana. The third one, to know whatever appears as the deity's illusory form. So whatever, all appearances is deity. Tomorrow, Khenpo Rinpoche is the empowerment. This point is a very important point. But in the context of an empowerment, and in the context of the meditation on the Buddha of compassion towards beings of the six realms, meaning then the entire conceivable range of existences, compassion towards all of them. All deity, all that appears is the deity's illusory form. So even deity is illusory. See, in some spiritual traditions, illusory is bad. In Buddhism, it's not good or not bad, it's just the nature of things. Now, samsara is also illusory. Deity is also illusory. But illusory doesn't mean don't exist. It just means existing with conditions. Conditional existence. Illusory is more poetic, but it just means conditional existences. Existing with contingencies. Everything is contingent upon everything else. So interdependence, that is another way. So Nagarjuna says, one side you call it emptiness, another side you call it interdependence. Because it's empty, therefore it can exist. Because this I and am empty of I, therefore I can actually exist. I know it sounds paradoxical, but you just have to let that sit for a while. It's good to plant some seeds, Then you're like, what? Later, if we have a chance, I don't know if we can cover everything that's in here, even with the next class. But in these three principal aspects of the path, he really plays with that idea towards the end. He says, Rinpoche says, Tsongkhapa says, and this might be too technical for many of you, but some of you will get what I'm saying here. He says, to dispel the extreme of nihilism, Buddha taught emptiness. What? Yeah, you think, wait, somebody print this wrong? Or it's like, no, he says yes. And then to dispel the extreme of essentialism or eternalism, then the Buddha taught about appearances. So appearances and emptiness are the two sides. He says to dispel against essentialism, he taught about appearances, and to dispel against the extreme of nihilism, he taught about emptiness. Many years ago, the first time I read this, I was like, oh, the translator messed up. The translator messed up, like, no, what is this, Then when you like, oh, okay, he is doing something else here. Yeah. Then, to be aware of bliss, clarity, and absence of thought. And these are three very advanced levels of meditation where you do a certain set of meditations to bring about the experience of bliss, and to bring about the experience of clarity, and to bring about the experience of the absence of thoughts. So there are sets of practices that you would do to induce those experiences. But you induce those experiences not because the experiences themselves are the goal. But it's when you experience these three states, right, then you have the possibility of going to actually experiencing directly the nature of reality. But to do that, there is some kind of, you could say, contrived methods to bring about these types of extraordinary experiences. But these are experiences and not realizations, but nonetheless necessary. For our intent and our purpose, no need to say that much about this, except to say that there are these, in Vajrayana level, there are all sorts of methods to induce these experiences. Then in the 60s and 70s, the hippies that turned up in Nepal, they read about this. Ooh, it's like, oh, different ways of inducing bliss and emptiness and no thoughts, So some of them are still stuck in Nepal. That's what Nepalese people, when they met Westerners, those are the Westerners that they met. It's funny, Kemba Rinpoche is just telling this Nepali woman that came to New York City. Your sister, yeah. That her sister comes from a remote area, and she started a restaurant, small restaurant, providing food for trackers, Western trackers, American trackers that came. So she's familiar with Americans. But then when she came to New York City, then when she went home, people say, "Oh, how was New York?" She's like, "I didn't see any real Americans." Because in her mind, the Americans are all like those trackers. They went to New York. It's like, this is not America. This is not the Americans I met. Who are these people? Then to meditate on Guru Yoga, the source of blessings. One who adopts these three is a mantra adept. Mantra here, in other spiritual traditions, they also mean this or that. Here it's not. It's talking about Vajrayana practitioner. It doesn't mean someone who goes about muttering mantras. Therefore they're Vajrayana. Here it means this is someone who practices secret mantra. Secret mantra is the term that is used most often in the text. In fact, Vajrayana is not used so often. Literally, not so much. Sangha, more common. So this is what it's talking about. It's a more technical term. On the third level, it's called the mantra adept. Someone who holds the power of Vajrayana level. And so specifically here, Buddha talks about Guru Yoga. Guru is the spiritual guide or mentor. And yoga is to be united with the Guru, with the spiritual mentor. Here is a very important emphasis in Vajrayana. But at the same time, personally, if you ask me, just because it is very important in Vajrayana, none of us should rush into this, thinking, "Oh, I need to find my Guru, I need to find my Guru. I need to find my spiritual guide, I need to find my spiritual guide." then whoever that kind of looks like a spiritual guide, you jump in and say, oh, you're my spiritual guide. It's not necessary. For most of us, we can practice the Dharma without needing to go find someone like this. On this level of Vajrayana, when they talk about the Guru, it's something very close to the heart, and it's something very natural and organic. I don't mean no problems, you will still, like, I don't like what he said, or I don't like what she said, you will still, kind of resist and have, challenging times. But then deep down, this is the person I can rely on. This is my guide. And it comes very naturally, organically. So don't start, oh, this is my teacher, and it's people get into trouble. Because then you project all kinds of things on some person. Especially in the Vajrayana, they say, you have to see your Guru as Buddha. And then we don't know what that means. And then all sorts of problems can come from there. Kempo, many, many years ago in Charlottesville, I tell this, now I'm going to embarrass. But no, nothing. Kempo did share a very important thing. Many, many years ago in Charlottesville, in the International Center, we were talking about this Guru issue. At that time, I still thought, maybe Tibetans are, somehow different species, Maybe they're from outer space, They naturally, they believe, the Guru is Buddha, And Kempo said, no, And then Kempo pointed to the tablecloth, He says, they say, he says, you and me, we look, this is white, But they say you have to see this as blue. You have to see this as blue. And Kempo said, it doesn't matter if you're Tibetan or American or Malaysian or Chinese, white is white, but now they're telling you it's blue, So I so appreciate Kempo's way of just honestly, it's white, but they tell you this is blue. So it's not easy. But it doesn't mean, that you just push aside, blue, 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 No, it's you have to work on seeing how it's blue on a totally different level. Not to pretend, it's blue, it's blue. Yeah, so it's okay. You can say, no, this is white. How can it be blue? But if you trust this training, you also don't say, no, this is not blue. You say, yes, it is blue, but now it is pretty white to me. Kempo say, the Tibetans joke, like, Lama, you are like Buddha. Lama, you are a Buddha. Guru, you are the Buddha. You are the Buddha. And then he said, also we add some words. He says, and so be like Buddha. Don't move. Don't talk. Don't say anything. Then it's easier for me to see you as Buddha if you actually stand there or sit there like Buddha. Especially if the Guru don't talk back to you. Then it's easy. Oh, you are so pure. You are so great. So Milarepa says, you should live 3 valleys away from your Guru. Because then it's easier. Oh, yes, it's blue. Every day you have to see white and say it's blue. Whew. Milarepa says, it's better to live 3 valleys away from your Guru. But I think beyond the issue of, black, white, blues, white you have to see as blue, is also you don't rely on the Guru, on the guide in the wrong way. Which is, no matter what, the slightest doubt, you need your Guru to answer your question. Then, especially these days, you don't even need to travel 3 valleys to go see your guru. You WhatsApp your guru. Then you can even tell whether he has read it or not. And sometimes the guru is not very good with technology. And so she has read it, and then she thinks you don't know. You're like, I know, you already read it. Where is your answer? Like, why are you not answering me? No, this is not how you train. This is not how you train. You are given instructions, then you go work on it, and you will fight, and you will struggle, and you will work on it until you think this is going to drive you crazy. And then something will happen. The whole time, you're trusting that this instruction is going to clear things for you. Then you come back and ask the guru, is this what I'm supposed to see? Maybe yes, maybe no, But you are the one that have to do the polishing. He or she cannot polish it for you. Because why? Because you accumulated the dirt yourself. Only you know where and what corner, where all the dirt is. So you have to do the polishing yourself. So this to meditate on Guru Yoga, to practice on Guru Yoga, don't rush into, I need to find a guru, I need to find a guru. They also say, when you are ready, then this relationship will happen. And if you're not, you're simply chasing after, a guru, or especially big names. I cringe when I see people who are teachers, especially in the West, many Dharma teachers, in their biography, they will say, he is a student of the Dalai Lama and Karmapa. It's like, how many books did you read? Of the Karmapa and the Dalai Lama, I mean, come on. You mean you attended an empowerment where there were 30,000 people? That's all about credentialing, but that's not what we're talking about here. This Guru Yoga. It's something very deep, very organic, and this connection is not an easy one. Again, another time when I was much younger and I was observing a difficult time between someone and his teacher, and I said, yeah, he's having this, and then someone else said, no, this is normal. This means it's actually working now, because the teacher is able to say directly what needs to be said, and the student is not going to like it, and then there's going to be this polishing. Now we got to be careful. So I have to say this. This is completely different from being stuck with someone who is abusive. That is something else already. And just know it happens. And it happens a lot when we walk into things blindly. So no matter how important, how good they say, you need a guru, don't rush into this. You just practice the Dharma, and everything will just fall into place. Today I want to look at the first song. It's called The View, Meditation, and Conduct. just very superficially. Right? There's so much you can talk about here, but some of this is very technical. I just want to give everyone a taste of what view, meditation, and conduct, how Milarepa puts it. But before we start that, any questions or comments based on what I've just said? Yes, sure. Different teachers do it differently. You know, some teachers will just ignore. It depends also how skillful the teacher is. Yeah, there's no one prescribed way. It's just again, it's something much more organic. You know, there is no manual to say turn to page 45. This is what you do. For this problem, turn to page 78. You know, this is what you should do. But I said to people, you know, I said, if you follow a teacher, and not necessarily even Vajrayana level teacher, because they're teachers of all sorts, you know, from the teacher who taught you how to read ABC all the way to the way Vajrayana talks about the teacher. Now, all those are teachers, in fact. But there are so many levels of teachers. But I will say, you know, no matter what level of teachers, right? If you find that after relating to this person as a teacher, yourself, right, as the student, if you find that you have become more and more dependent on this person, then maybe something is wrong there. Not guaranteed wrong, but you should check a little bit. What's going on? What's going on? Because again, sometimes the teacher loves it that everybody is dependent on him or her, including her, you know. Sometimes again we think, oh, there are so many badly behaving male teachers, then female teachers are absolutely faultless. Then you don't understand samsara, you know. Samsara is just samsara. It's just that our social structure is such that we have produced more male teachers. But samsara is samsara. If you feel that you become more and more dependent, I have seen myself, you know. Every culture is different, right? So in my opinion, it becomes very unhealthy in a culture that emphasizes a lot of independence, like American culture, you know, generally. And then somehow they start training with a Tibetan teacher, right? I mean, I'm not exaggerating. Literally, people will call and say, Lama, should I paint my bedroom wall red or blue? Yeah. Should I get a cat or a dog? You know, and the Lama will actually answer questions like that. Or let me think, cat. Yeah. Or let me think, you know, blue on this side and white on that side. You know? I'm not saying that in all cases when that is going on, there's something problematic. But I dare say, if these are some of the things that are going on, just think again, what is going on here? You know, this is not how I feel. This is not how we rely on the teacher. We rely on the teacher to be free, to grow, you know, to grow, to become tough. Yes.
It seems like it's pretty common now to focus on the dangers of the relationship, even at the price of kind of underestimating.
Oh yes, of course.
The role that that relationship
Yes.
has played
Yes.
And it's interesting that tomorrow we'll have an empowerment.
Yes.
I don't think you get an empowerment just by reading it, by sitting at home and reading a text.
Yes. Yes.
You've got to have
Right.
the guy.
Yes. The guy. Yes. Or the gal.
And there is something about
Oh, absolutely.
personal
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's really at the heart.
Absolutely. 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 That's what I'm saying, you know, that you cannot. So therefore, now with all these scandals and everything, there are some people who say, okay, let's get rid of that. No, it's not going to work. Why? Because we're human beings. We are human beings. We need to connect with human beings. And once you connect with human beings, we say, you know, the Dharma like this, printed, is dead. It has no life force. The real Dharma has to come to us from someone who is alive. Not because the someone who is alive is like some kind of God, but the Dharma, this is not the Dharma. These are just words, right, printed on paper. It has to come to us. So we say lineage is the life force. Now again, sometimes the lineage stuff is got mixed up with monastery, institution. Then once you have that, you have land. Then you have property. Then you have someone in charge of all of that, right? Then it gets all mixed up in all that sort of stuff. But in the Vajrayana text, when they talk about lineage, it's nothing to do with that. It's not about, oh, I'm this, you're that, this and that. No, it's talking about this life force, right, of the Dharma that has been flowing down uninterruptedly, and now is flowing in me. And you don't get that from reading books. You know, you can only plug into it from a source that has that. Yes.
I can't quite relate to that because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I have a connection with someone who wrote
Uh-huh.
books,
Mm-hmm.
but I still
Oh.
feel the same connection. So I feel like there is some kind of
Oh, yeah, sure. Of course. But you know what? You don't know what you're missing. Yeah. Which is what the text is saying. It's not saying, I'm not literally saying this is useless, you know. But again, if you like the songs of Milarepa, you know, or Shantideva's Bodhisattva, I read cover from cover, like a little bit every day as a daily practice, you know, again and again and again and again, right? But when you have the life force coming through, that text suddenly, wham, goes to a whole other level. That's how powerful it is. It goes to a whole other level. So like in Tibetan tradition, there's an emphasis on receiving the reading transmission, lung, right? I have so many, like Khenpos, you know, who will tell me, like they would be reading a text, right, for the longest time, reading some text, but they never formally receive the reading transmission, and not even Vajrayana, just like not just like, but like a philosophical text. And they said, but after receiving the reading transmission, you know, you open the book. Oh, wow. It just happens. So it's not to say that the book has no power, but the real power comes to us in the personal, face-to-face. So they talk about the Dakini's warm breath that is passed down from breath to breath. The Dakini's warm breath that will be passed down from mouth to mouth. So it's talking about that kind of, you know, connectedness. And of course, the guru can be, again, there's one way of dividing guru into four types. The guru as a person, the most obvious guru. Then sense experiences as guru. That's also another kind of guru. Then your own mind as guru. What's the fourth one? Do you remember? I forgot. There are four. A text. Buddha's text as guru. Individual as guru as an individual. A guru as in Buddha's instructions. Guru as our daily experiences can manifest as a guide. And our own mind as guru. Elsewhere, Lama Shabkar, he said, another great master of the past, he said, at the beginning, the human guru as an individual was my guru. Then in the middle, the text was my guru. So also in practical terms, I think his actual guru has passed. Right? But by relying on that actual guru and the blessing of that guru, then in the middle part, whatever text he picks up, it just flows. Because he has received enough guidance from the teacher, now you can understand the text in a way that was very different from before. Then he said, then in the end, my own mind is the guru. Anyway, let's look at Milarepa's song. The view is wisdom, which is empty. The meditation is luminosity, free of fixation, at the very first page. The conduct is the continual stream of non-attachment. The fruition is nakedness, free of stains. So that's how he explained view, meditation, and conduct. Then he elaborates on these four in the next four verses. With this view, the wisdom that is empty, there's the danger of straying into mere talk. If you don't develop certainty in reality, words will not liberate the clinging to a self. Therefore, certainty is extremely important. Yeah, so, Milarepa, of course, in his day and time, and even now, many people who go into Dharma studies become great scholars. And he says, those are just wasting their time. He says they get stuck with words. And he says, you have to develop certainty in your own mind rather than getting caught up in all the words. Of course, you rely on the words, but don't become addicted to the words and think, this is it. The story of Milarepa, some Buddhist philosophers, trained in philosophy, the story says they got a little jealous of Milarepa because they were in the institutes of higher Buddhist learning, all the great professors, teaching Dharma. But then a lot of people were going to see Milarepa, so they got a little upset. It's like, what does that guy know, He never received proper education. He was never properly trained. So they wanted to go embarrass him. So they challenged him to a debate. Milarepa said, I don't debate. He said, I don't do this. Then they're like, what do you mean, If you don't debate, how can you, say that you are a Buddhist practitioner? Because you have to understand, from Indian Buddhism, there's tremendous emphasis on debate. And so one of the signs of an educated Buddhist is the ability to debate. But debate has its own set of rules. In the Tibetan monastic debate that came out of India, there's a set of rules. So you learn those rules, and then you debate within the parameters of those rules. So basically, they're trying to get Milarepa to debate with them that way. But Milarepa said, no, I don't debate. They're like, no, you have to. Then Milarepa had no choice, He said, okay, then go ahead. Then these doctors of philosophy said, no, why don't you ask us some question? So they thought, like, we'll give you, let you decide what we want to talk about. And Milarepa said, okay. Milarepa said, he said, what is the definition of, how about something like, what is the definition of like solidity? So a lot of the debates is about like learning like definition of terms. So I say, what is the definition of like solidity? And they say, oh, then the technical term, solidity is like not being able to pass through. Then Milarepa said, oh, okay, good. Then Milarepa said, okay, this wall. So they're in his cave, They say, okay, this wall, is this solid or not? Does this qualify as the quality of solidity? And they say, yes, And Milarepa said, okay. Then he got up. Then he walked through the walls. Then he came in from the door of his cave, and he said, how about that? Then they were not satisfied. Then Milarepa said, okay, let me ask you, what is the definition of space? They say, oh, definition of space is that you can go through, And he said, Milarepa said, really? I said, yes. I said, okay. So he got up and he started stepping up space. Like he's walking up the steps, to the top of his cave. And he looked down and said, how about this? Then he walked back down. Like space means not having resistance, So Milarepa said, okay, now what should we debate? They're like, okay, thank you. And they left, With this meditation, luminosity free from fixation, there's the danger of straying into mere abiding. If wisdom does not dawn from within, though you may abide stably, there's no liberation. Wisdom won't develop from downness and agitation. Thus, undistracted mindfulness is very important. So the gist of what is being said here is, when we talk about meditation, there is the danger of getting stuck in a state of thinking, of feeling, not just thinking, like everything is so good now. So the danger of straying into mere abiding. And this mere abiding is a false sense of peace, would be how we would express it. That through meditation, you can temporarily experience, where everything is just fine. Oh, so good, and then you get stuck there. So he's basically saying that's not going to solve our problems. He said, really, from the Buddhist perspective, the problem is not that we don't have peace of mind. That is just a symptom of the problem. The cause of the problem is we don't have wisdom. We don't see clearly things as they are. So so now, whatever peace that we can obtain from meditation is temporary break from the chaos. And it's important you develop that, because until you have that, it's going to be hard for you to develop clear seeing. Right? If you're running around frantically, there's no chance to see clearly. So first Buddha taught us how to meditate to stop. Then when you stop, then you have to develop clear seeing. If you don't develop clear seeing, then you just stop. And then you stop. And then you stop. Then soon you are stuck. So this second one is basically saying we have to develop clear seeing. And so often our spiritual practices is just searching for these stops. just a temporary stop. It's understandable because we suffer so much, we want to find, the quickest way to take away the pain, right? So you get some painkiller. But the painkiller just numbs, right, your pain senses, right? But it's still going on. So you have to develop wisdom. Third, with this conduct, the continual stream of non-attachment, there's the danger of straying into improper behavior. If the view and meditation don't dawn as his companion, then yogic discipline becomes a friend of the 8 concerns. Therefore, being free of attachment and obscurations is very important. So the essence of conduct is non-attachment. But then he says here, but there is the danger of, he calls, straying into improper behavior. What that means is, non-attachment can also lead to nothing whatsoever matters, whatever hell. Do whatever you want. He says that's the danger of that. When you say, oh, everything is just empty, so who cares? So in the Zen tradition, there's a story. The teachers, they have these where the teacher is checking the development of the student. So one day this teacher said, show me emptiness. Then the students, because Zen, they don't have the debate tradition, but they have this tradition of teacher and student, very close relationship and checking. So teacher said, show me emptiness. And the student goes, then the teacher said, no. So then the student said, show me emptiness. Then the teacher grabbed his nose, like really hard, and pulled him across the room. Just pulled him across the room, and he was in so much pain, yelling, screaming. He pulled him across the room, and then when he reached the other side, he let go, and he said, this is emptiness. And according to this story, the teacher was taken to court. No, joking. The student had an awakening, which is like, emptiness is not separate from form. Right? If you can realize emptiness in the midst of that pain, then you're free. Right? But if your freedom is just running away from difficulties, that's not freedom. That's just, a prey, running away from a predator. But in the midst of facing the predator, you are free. Then you are truly free. So here it means, in terms of conduct, the essence of conduct is non-attachment, which means you're no more encumbered by these worldly concerns. We call them the 8 concerns. The 8 worldly concerns, 2 columns. Want, don't want, basically. What we want is gain, praise, pleasure, and fame. This is what we want. Pleasure, gain, fame, and praise. What we don't want is pain, loss, blame, and loss of good name, loss of reputation. So these are the 8 concerns. It says, be careful. Don't let these 8 winds, blow you left and right and up and down. Right now, basically 8 winds control all the decisions that we make. The Milarepa says, your conduct has to be free from the 8 concerns on the one hand. But on the other hand, be careful not to let it turn into kind of a nihilistic, nothing matters. So on the one hand, be free from the 8 winds, the 8 worldly concerns. On the other hand, The essence of that is not caring anymore. The Milarepa says, the world, everybody in the world thinks I'm crazy, but the world is really crazy. That story about him naked, and the sister said, it's so shameful, that why did you have to be naked? And he said, we are born with this, and you are ashamed of. We're not born with pride and jealousy and aggression. And yet everybody goes around displaying all of that without any sense of shame. He says, so tell me who is crazy? He says, the world thinks I'm crazy, but the world is the one that's crazy. The world is the one that's insane. So then the fruition, that is nakedness free of stains. Yeah, he likes nakedness, I suppose. Has the danger of being clothed in the garments of characteristics. There's that. If confusion doesn't collapse from within, you just meditate with the mental aspiration or a facsimile, like kind of a mental facsimile, not the actual thing. You'll just get stuck meditating like that, then it will be of little meaning. Therefore, the collapse of confusion is very important. That finally, confusion has to be dispelled. Otherwise, you do all these things. So this is the equivalent of earlier what I said, You want to know how well your meditation is going? Actually, not very useful to check, how blissful you feel, how clear your mind is during your meditating, how thoughts have all disappeared. See how your life is, when you get up from the meditation cushion. If you get up from the meditation cushion and the first thing you do is, start yelling at people for disturbing your meditation, then you know how good the meditation is. There's one story, one of the great masters of India. He one day before he started his meditation, he told his wife, he said, I'm going to meditate a little bit, but for lunch today, can you make some radish curry? So he meditated. Then it said that it was that day he reached a point where his meditation, he was able to enter a state of single-pointed meditative absorption, where completely everything is gone. So he meditated. Then he came out of that meditation. And he came out of the meditation. He turns, he sees his wife. He goes, is the curry ready? The wife took the pot, and threw at him and broke it. The wife said, you have been in that state for 12 years. And the first thing you do when you come out of it is, where's my radish curry? Saraha, I think. Say, you're useless, he said. I waited for 12 years hoping that maybe now you will be Buddha, He said, but the first thing you ask is, where is my radish curry? I suppose he's also a guy. Doesn't know how to cook, So if confusion is not dispelled, no matter how people say, oh, I can meditate so well, or sometimes the opposite. People are like, I cannot meditate, and you worry about all these things, but it's like, wait. What's the whole point of meditating? It's so that when you get up of this cushion, the way you look at things, the way you relate to things, the way you relate to people has actually changed. If that has not changed, then it's like saying you're so skillful in your driving, but you've never gone on the road. You've only been driving the simulation. Your score is 100 points. But what level unlocked? Is that? Oh, achievement unlocked. I'm learning some of this more up-to-date expressions. Yeah? achievement unlocked, but you've never driven on the road. You know, you're just being stuck on your video game. So often people stress over things that, yeah, of course it's good to have a good meditation, but what is the point of that? It's so that the mind changes. If the mind doesn't change, big deal. 6 years retreat, 12 years retreat, 25 years retreat. Where's my radish curry? Anyway, even forgot to have a break. And this time, we actually have a lot of sugar to feed you. So, before you leave, if sugar doesn't harm you, please have some and take with you.
There's some things that are not sugar as well.
Oh yes, there's also some non-sugar things in the back. So have some few minutes to socialize a little bit. But before we end, and again, not always necessary to say those words, but sometimes it's good to say. But we also do this thing that we call dedication, which is that at the beginning we do motivation. We give the proper context of why we're doing what we're doing. Then at the end, it's like you come a full circle. You say, whatever good that might have come from doing this, from learning this, may that, be dedicated to the freedom from suffering of all beings everywhere. One joke, he said, in Vajrayana, we can turn everything into something positive. So he said, generally we say we only dedicate good things. Then he said, but in Vajrayana, you can even dedicate to say, if tonight I feel was a complete waste of time, then may no one else have to experience this. So even suffering, So if you decide, God, that was a complete waste of my 2 hours, then you say, by my experiencing of this suffering, of listening to this guy go on and on for 2 hours, may nobody else have to experience this. So just a few moments, joking aside, or serious as well, think about, whatever good, big or small, that you think, that you feel, you have gained. Don't just think about yourself, but think, how can this then be dedicated to the freedom of suffering of all beings everywhere? Okay, thank you for coming. Tomorrow we will start right at 10. If you plan to join us, it's wonderful if you can come here at least 15 minutes or 20 minutes before the program starts. And then we will end around 1 o'clock. Thank you.